Hi, I'm Ferre with Tax Sale Support with the Tax Sale Secrets Weekly Update.
Absolutely. We're gonna talk about the auctions that are coming up from January 15th to the 22nd.
Excellent. Let's take a look at some other things here. Let's talk about news and announcements here, and we're also going to cover different hot lists that are available. We'll talk a little bit about our weekly tax sale tip, which for this week we're going to talk for a minute about title searches and the role they play, and then also investor questions and answers.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of our idea with this is just to each week put out a video that has upcoming auctions that are taking place. Also some tax sale tips, and also any questions that you guys have, you can go ahead and submit them on YouTube, and we'll answer some of those questions.
Now, for those of you that have never joined us for one of our Saturday morning workshops, we are holding one on January 27th at 10 a.m. It's our Saturday morning workshops, which we do. They're free to attend, and we generally try to make them basically geared for people that are relatively new, but to also show you what's out there and how much the industry's changed.
Absolutely. They're completely free to attend. All you need to do is just go down to the description, and we'll have a link there that you can click on to attend.
Excellent. Now, you can also, if you want to download more free materials, we have the Secrets of Tax Lien Investing website where you can download a two-part ebook, or you can also check out tax sale support for the other services we offer.
Now, as far as some of the upcoming auctions, what we want to do is these aren't all of the auctions that we have available on tax sale support, but we want to highlight some good auctions or some hot list auctions that are going to be coming up each day. Here on January 16th, we can see we have Jackson, Florida, Polk County, and Cumberland, North Carolina. But on the 17th, we can see that we have Nashville, Tennessee, and Duval, and also a New Jersey tax lien auction happening on the 17th.
Yeah, which is interesting. Is that just for commercial property as well?
No, it's actually the town of Commercial.
Oh, I see. There are a ton of sales happening right now. It's a really good time of the year to get involved, and certainly it's easier now than it's ever been before. Now, one of the tips we'd like to talk about are title searches. And if you don't know what a title search is, a title search is basically the process when you hire a company and they research the history of the property and the title to ensure that basically ownership rights.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, really, the title search, what they're going to do is they're going to go through, just like Shade said, all of the deeds, the past records, the court records, to really determine exactly all the information that's attached to the property. Now, when it comes to tax sale investing, in most cases, most tax liens, you're not going to need a title search. But with tax deed investing, that's really where you're going to start using title searches.
Yeah, with tax deeds, you're looking at acquiring a property. I mean, tax deeds are essentially foreclosures, and so when you buy them, you are buying the property outright, and you can sell it. But with liens, because you have the lien against the property that is most likely going to redeem, there really isn't that same need to research into a property that way, because you're not really trying to buy it. You're essentially just buying a lien against it. But anytime you are acquiring property, a title search is going to be a good idea to have that done. You can have a professional title search done to help you become aware of the property's history, as well as any other liens or encumbrances or anything that might be attached to the property that you're unaware of.
Yeah, really our main purpose in this is to look for other governmental liens. When we're talking about tax deed properties, the foreclosure process is going to eliminate most things like mortgages or anything like that against the property. So what we're really looking for is any of those governmental liens that we might have to pay if we do acquire the property.
Yeah, the liens that sometimes survive foreclosure are generally liens issued by municipalities or counties, sometimes, or cities, and they're oftentimes related to things like grass mowing lien or something of that nature. If there are liens that are against the property that are still existing, or it could be some kind of a water bill or something like that, possibly, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay, so when you are going to have a title search done, you need to locate a title search company, one of the companies that can perform the search for you. And there are a lot of different options that are out there. And so, really, there's two different ways that you can go about finding or deciding on a company. You can choose one of the many different online statewide companies that offer title searches, and there are a lot of them out there. Uh, Option two is you can hire your local title company that's located near the property to perform more of an in-depth title search. And it's interesting. There are a lot of online companies out there that offer it, but we found the prices tend to vary quite a bit between them, and between what type of information the the title search provides.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll actually go through and talk about a couple of the different companies that are online as well. Just like Shade said, the options are quite vast. As far as a cheap search, um, there's a company called nextace.com and searchq.com, and these guys provide title searches for around $30. Now, these aren't going to be your full extended title search, but what they are able to pull up is any type of governmental liens and liens against the property, and that's stuff that we're interested in. Now, the biggest problem with this is, number one, you're going to need a property address. In addition to that, not all markets are going to be available. So, in fact, we just tried a particular market, and we weren't able to do a title search in that particular market. So, if it is available within that market, it's a great, inexpensive way to get at least the information that you need to make a decision.
Yeah, and the $30 search is a good. It's a good opportunity there if you're able to use it. When it comes to title searches, part of what these companies are doing is going through county records, and if they don't have access to those county records, then they have to go about a different method of getting the records. They've got to contact them, so there's more work that's involved. So when we say that the property needs an address, we mean it needs an address like the way that a home has an address versus the way that sometimes raw land or something like that might not have an address. You're going to have a harder time with a title search on something like that, where you'll probably need to have something more specialized when there's no physical address there for the property.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to look up with the legal description or a parcel number or anything like that. That's the reason, like Shade said, you need to have the property address. Here's another company that's highly recommended, has a good rating with the BBB, have been around for a long time. They're TitleSearch.com, and they offer an expanded property title search for $179. And now the expanded search is really going to include everything. Everything on the property going back, about 30 years or so.
Yeah, this is a pretty detailed title report here for 179. You're not going to most likely need anything beyond what this, and really most of this is probably even overkill in terms of what you need just to perform the necessary due diligence. But if you if you ever plan on selling the property, having a title search performed is completely necessary.
Yeah, exactly, and especially if you're planning on spending $10 or $20 or $30 or $40,000 on a tax deed auction on a property, you're going to want to know as much information about it as you can.
Yeah. So yeah, really, this search would really provide everything that you would need. But again, the cost is a little bit higher, and so you obviously aren't going to run full title searches on every single property that you look at. You have to be very selective about which ones that you perform a title search on, and you've got to basically wait until a point where you are more sure to get the property, because you don't want to waste a lot of money on something just to have it redeemed.
Yeah, exactly. This one here is USTitleRecords.com. Now, these guys provide quite a few different services. You can get a lien report for $110. You can also get it for $95. The primary search for 195 is going to be similar to the expanded search that we just saw. So these guys have a couple of different options. If you were just looking for the liens, you could spend about $95, or you could purchase a full title chain that's going to go back to the entire history of the property, going back 100 years or to wherever the property was created for 275.
Yeah, which I was just going to say that full title chain is really them just going back to the to the original ownership records and ensuring that everything's in proper order. Certainly more detailed than we normally need. Normally, if we can just get information about government liens that still exist against the property and simple things like that. I mean, I think a lot of these things will show easements as well, and will tell you everything you really need to know about the property. And so, certainly, there's more than one of these that would work.
Yeah, definitely. And these are some of the bigger companies. Option 2 is to hire a company locally within that area. You can contact a title company or an abstractor that can locate the property and do a search for you. Now, as far as finding these people, you can search online using the yellow pages, or if you have set up a power team that we talk about with our members, then you'll many times can get a recommendation from one of your power team members. Now, generally, it's going to cost $150 up to $300 to do that locally. So generally, the price is going to be pretty similar.
Some tips relating to title searches. I mentioned a minute ago that you don't want to waste money on properties that you can't win, and this is true of everything related to the research process prior to the investment. You don't want to spend a lot of money on these properties prior to the sale, and you also don't want to spend a lot of time. But the closer you get to the date of the sale, the more accurate the list becomes. And so you really want to wait for as long as you can and still be able to have the title search performed. But there's nothing wrong with waiting until the last minute, waiting until the last few days to be able to get that done.
Yeah, exactly. And one other thing to add is that this is something that we teach our members. We have a training about, but many times an investor can do what we call an investor title search. Now, we generally do these on lower dollar tax deeds, but court records and documents like that are really public record, and so there is the possibility on lower dollar liens, lower dollar deeds, to do what we call an investor title search, where we'll actually go through and search the court records, the deed records, and see if there's any liens against the property that way.
Yeah, and what's nice is that today many of these records are available online and can be located if you know where to find them. And so you can essentially go through the process of looking into a property's ownership history and look for potential problems that might exist or liens. You can see basically what has happened with the property and anything that you need to be aware of.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Now, it's a good idea always with when you're buying the properties with improvements to have a title search performed. It's not quite as necessary if you're buying property that is raw land. Okay, so if it's property with improvements like a single-family home, then you need to have a title search performed because the property is going to have quite a bit more value because it's a home and has use, and therefore it's going to have more information related to the history that you're going to need to know, most likely. Now, the same could be true, obviously, of land, but more often than not, land is simpler in terms of the ownership structure. It's usually owned by a single person, or usually not a lot of loans and things like that are not as common.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And so, in those type of properties, that's something that we teach our members is how to go through and contact the city officials and different records within the court to determine if there's any liens that we need to be worried about. Is there something like, and the most common are something like a water lien or a mow lien, a maintenance lien, where the county had to come out and trim the trees or mow the grass because the property was not being taken care of at that point.
Well, and thinking about, I guess, when we're looking at tax liens, we may not do a full title search, but we do look at the roll-up on the property. We try to get an idea of exactly, how much is owed in past taxes and how late it is. There is a lot of information that we can gather online now that makes it possible to pick the best investments and ensure that they have high levels of security.
Yeah, exactly. Now, each week we're going to take a couple of the questions that we get either coming in through the questions that we have with our members or questions that we get on YouTube. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them on YouTube, and we may feature them on one of these weekly updates. But we have a couple of questions that came in. The first question is from Dan. It says, when I purchase a property at a tax deed sale, what happens if there's a mortgage on the property? We talked a little bit about that, but can you kind of explain that process, Shade?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. It's something that everybody has thought about before, because a lot of times when you're thinking about properties, you're thinking about a home and you think about the mortgage. And so the question is, what happens with a mortgage when there are delinquent taxes? And essentially, the mortgage company is really the owner of the property in a way. I guess you could say that they're in a partnership with the borrower, but the mortgage company still owns the property itself. They still have the deed to the property essentially in their name. Now, when you have a mortgage against the property, the mortgage company is basically just like another owner. All right, it's really no different than if I owned it or you owned it. The only thing that's different about a mortgage company is that they're a borrower. They're a lender, so they're willing to borrow out money for these types of properties. Now, what's really important to remember here is that property taxes have to be collected, and there has to be a system in place that requires people to pay their property taxes, or they risk some type of a consequence. And the best consequence, or what works most effectively, is foreclosure. It's the loss of property rights eventually if the property taxes aren't paid. Well, what's interesting is when a property is delinquent with their property taxes, the county makes lots of attempts to notify the owner and to let them know about what's happening. In fact, part of the foreclosure process is the legal steps that the county is required to go through in order to be able to foreclose on that property. And one of the legal steps they have that's required is sending out foreclosure notices. Now, when foreclosure notices go out, they're going to go out to every party that has a financial interest in the property. So if there is a mortgage company that is involved, then when the foreclosure notices go out, they're going to go out to both the borrower, homeowner, and the mortgage company as well. They'll receive a foreclosure notice as well. So the homeowner, they may be aware that they're late on property taxes, but let's say that the mortgage company is not. They may not know anything about delinquent taxes because maybe it's not something they deal with. For a lot of people, it's built into their mortgage and things like that. But essentially, when they find out about that, the mortgage company will step in if they have to and pay off the amount required to secure their position, because otherwise, if they don't step forward and pay that amount by the date that it's owed, they will be foreclosed on, just like the property owner is being foreclosed on due to the delinquent amount that's owed. The only thing that's required by law is that the county notifies the parties here about the impending foreclosure and gives them an opportunity to pay it off. So the majority of the time, if there's a mortgage, the property ends up redeeming. If for some reason it didn't redeem and that foreclosure date came, then the property would be foreclosed on. And the mortgage itself would no longer be attached to the property. It would still exist. In other words, the borrower still borrowed the money from the mortgage company, but they no longer have the property securing the investment. They would have lost that.
The property is no longer collateral.
Yeah, it's no longer collateral.
Yeah, I think that's a good explanation. So when we're looking at tax deeds, just like Shade said, the foreclosure process is going to eliminate any type of mortgage, judgments, any type of normal lien against the property.
Yeah, really, it can wipe out anything, really.
Yeah, it's going to wipe out everything. The only exception to that is those other governmental liens that we talked about, like a grass lien or a water lien or something like that. And so, in almost all in almost all circumstances, except for maybe like New Mexico or a couple of different scenarios, when you go through that foreclosure process, it's going to eliminate that.
Yeah, it's really one of the best parts about tax deeds, and that foreclosure that it goes through is the legal for. In fact, it's called the judicial foreclosure. It's through the courts. It's how the state law requires it.
Yeah, exactly. So we got one other question from Shelley, and she said, "I want to start investing into tax liens. What are some of the best states to get started with?" And that's kind of a loaded question because there is so many good states out there to get started with. But it's really going to depend on the individual strategy. When we were talking about ease of purchasing tax liens, we usually talk about Florida and some of the online auction states like Arizona, Maryland. Those are generally going to be pretty easy states to invest into tax lien certificates. Especially if you're looking at over-the-counter. Florida, I would say, is a pretty good state to get started with.
Yeah, it is a good state for people to begin in because they make many different aspects of the process easier than you might find in other states. In addition to that, the 18% maximum interest rate that Florida will pay out on liens is a great interest rate return. I mean, basically, it's accruing at 1.5% per month. So it's an excellent return, and Florida also has an early payoff penalty, which basically means if you were to buy a lien and it redeemed in the first month or two, let's say it redeemed in the first month, and you are earning 1.5% on your money, it wouldn't really be worth all the time and the effort. So what Florida has is for any tax lien that redeems in the first year, I believe, right?
Yeah.
It has a flat 5% penalty rate, so that essentially it increases increases your overall return, so that you don't have to worry about having a lien that redeems quickly and wasting your time. You're going to make, even if it redeems immediately, you'll still make at least 5%.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a workshop, online workshop here on the YouTube channel that goes over how to buy tax liens. And so that would probably be something we'd recommend watching. And it'll go through and explain exactly how it works and kind of break it down so that you can pick an area to get started with.
Yeah, and it's a great time to start buying tax liens. It's a great time to get involved, and I think there's never been more opportunities than there is right now.
Yeah, definitely. And so if you'd like to learn more about our membership program, of course, you can go check out TaxSelfSupport.com. If you'd like to download or you have not downloaded our two-book ebook series, Tax Lien Investor Secrets, you can go ahead and download that at secretsoftaxlieninvesting.com. In fact, that book was actually featured in a TV infomercial.
Yeah, and you can also contact us directly if there's anything that you have questions about, something you would like help with. If you'd like to learn more about the membership program or what we do with the members that we work with, then just contact us to let us know. You can reach us at TaxSelfSupport.com.
Yeah, exactly. Don't forget to subscribe and to like this video, and we'll be putting one out each week for you.
Thanks.